Call the meeting of the Twinsburg Board of Building and Zoning Code Appeals and ask for a roll call. Are all present?
All present.
All are present. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the next item on the agenda is the swearing in of new and returning members, and I believe Mr. Scafidi will be handling that.
Yes, sir.
You want us to rise and raise our right hands?
Yes, sir. After the word "I," repeat your name and then repeat after me.
I, Gary Wilner,
Thomas R. Brown.
Chris Griffith, Mike Jameson.
Do hereby swear
Do hereby swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
Charter, ordinances and resolutions
ordinances and
of
resolutions
the City of Twinsburg, Ohio,
of the City of Twinsburg, Ohio,
and I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge the duties as a member of Board of Zoning Appeals to the best of my ability, as I shall answer to God. Very good. Congratulations.
Nomination for chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I'd like to nominate Ed Kanzler for chairman of the board.
I appreciate that.
I'll second that.
Let's have a roll call vote.
Who seconded that?
I did, Chris. Yep.
Can you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Jameson?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Kanzler?
Yes. Selection of chairman and vice chairman. Do we have a nomination for chairman?
Vice chairman.
Vice chairman, I'm sorry.
I nominate Tom Brown.
I second that.
Roll call.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jameson?
Yes.
Mr. Kanzler?
Yes. Okay. Based on the fact that we have is there any public participation beyond what has been discussed or any issues? I only see one person in the audience. Is that the applicant for the variance? Could you come forward and speak into the microphone, and could you raise your right hand? That the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to God?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you tell us the nature of the variance that you're requesting?
Yes, I'm Evan Contour with CPK Construction representing Summit Sound. We are looking for a variance to do an addition on the current building. The current building, the subway in front and Summit Sound behind, is over the setback by roughly 6.5 feet, the 20-foot setback.
The current building.
The current.
Building, correct. And we are continuing the current building out the rear or the back side of the building, and we would like to match up to the current building, even though it is over the setback by 6.5 feet.
Well, even though it's over the setback, I would presume it had been granted a variance for that original construction.
And nobody can find any record of any
Understood.
variance of that sort.
But based on that assumption, which is logical because of the positioning of the existing building, and it would be consistent with the new construction to follow the line of that building, noting that there is non-residential zoning adjoining the property along this boundary line, and the property to the rear of the building is likewise not some residential zoning, but business zoning. So do I have a motion to grant a variance as requested?
I make a motion that we approve Appeal 03-2022.
I second.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Wallner,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Jamison,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsler.
Yes. Appeal 03-2022 is granted. So good luck.
Thank you. Do I contact the building department next for
Yes.
submission?
Yes.
For building permit?
Are you
Okay.
gonna do the
Do I have to wait the 30 days? I don't know how soon you're gonna want your permit.
Well, we should
But
be
council
ready.
has to, we'll meet in 2 weeks and council
Okay.
has to approve this.
Gotcha.
And you can't get a permit until that happens.
We would be ready to submit for the full engineer drawings in about 2 weeks, so that timeline actually should match up very well with.
So should I go ahead and make that motion at the next council meeting to waive the 30-day period?
Yeah, I don't see it being an issue.
Okay. We'll do that then at the next council meeting, which will be 2 weeks from yesterday.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
And I would like to enter into the record Board of Zoning Appeals Exhibit A, which is the rendering of the entire property in issue. So that will become an exhibit and part of the
Right.
record here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 23rd, 2022?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 23rd, 2022.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Jamison,
Yes.
Mr. Wallner,
yes.
Mr. Kinsler.
Yes. Do we have any communications, written communications directed to the board in any way?
For what, I apologize for what?
Any notices to our board or letters to the board or anything like that?
Other than what
The
Mr.
approval
Vazano
of
said.
findings.
Yeah, other than what
What we have
Mr.
been supported with.
Right,
The
Venzana.
approval findings.
Okay. We have a decision that is part of the minutes. I think you've been supplied with a copy of that. I would like a motion to approve the decision as written, which reflects what we did at the last meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make that motion that we adopt, or that the BZA adopt those notes. From
Appeals docket 02-2022.
Correct. As written and as presented.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Jamison,
Yes.
Mr. Wallner,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsler.
Yes. And I will,
You signed it,
hand
correct?
that decision to you. We have no absent members to excuse. This is the first time we've
Yeah.
had full council
This-
then.
One thing, again, with your permission, again, tonight is an example of where the building commissioner should be given a little more latitude to make decisions. You have an established building that obviously is beyond the boundaries. It somehow was granted a variance, and we have it here. We just can't find the paperwork, but this should be where the building commissioner has the latitude to say, hey, we already have a building in place. He's just adding on, he's not exceeding that, and go ahead and grant that. I just make that point for the record.
And for the record, I would add to that, the law director has advised me, and I think us as a group, that he's been working on an amendment to present to city council so that the building commissioner can be given that discretion on, especially on items like this and other items where it doesn't take a full meeting and somebody paying $150 to to file a request for a variance when it's so self-evident.
I feel like the question is, though, where does that latitude end?
Well, that's a good
And that's
point.
it's hard to write down in a proposal.
Right.
For the council.
Well,
I
we
don't
set the
know.
guidelines, so as you know, we did that for the Architecture Review Board, which was very dissatisfied with what we did there. That board was, or the chairman for sure. And we set those guidelines though, you know, and if it's, needs to be, if they, I don't know, if they feel that it's too stringent or they, I don't know, I'm not gonna talk about that board, I'm not sure what their issue is. I haven't attended that meeting, but to answer your question, we can set those guidelines.
All right.
Yeah, I think along with the law director, you know, that there's a certain amount of latitude
Sure.
that in this case, you know, you've already got a building. All he's doing is adding to a building staying within that current variance. You know, obviously, if he wanted to go beyond that, then yes, it would have to come to us. But you're right, Jim, or Michael, there has to be boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, 90% of what I've been on has been so cut and dry. The only, like, I think I've
Most
missed
of the
maybe
stuff-
one meeting, and it was last meeting. I'm kind of curious to ask somebody about I missed the one that was interesting. But, yeah, I mean, you're right. As long as there's some way to do it where it makes it,
Right.
we're not putting too much on the building commissioner.
Yeah, and it, by setting those boundaries, you know, we're protecting him as well.
Right.
You know, we do have that authority to countermand some things, but as long as he stays within it. But there are a lot of cases where it's kind of obvious.
Do you have a copy of the exhibit that was submitted with the application for the...
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right. Let's pass an extra one to him.
I'm gonna return mine as
So it's
well.
in there.
There's no sense in keeping all this stuff.
Okay. Any other business? New or old? Have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn meeting for today.
Second?
I second it.
Roll call?
I apologize, I was getting myself right there. Who motioned it?
I motioned to excuse the meeting. And Mr. Wilner second.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Wilmer?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jameson?
Yes.
Mr. Cancel?
Yes. Without any further business before the board, the meeting is adjourned.